Our next speaker, Hylke Koers from Elsevier. He is the head of content innovation at Elsevier and also co-chair of the ICSU RDA working group on data publication services.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. First of all, thank you to the organizers for having me here. It's a great opportunity to present a little bit of the work that I'm doing on linking articles and data, both at Elsevier and also in the context of the joint ICSU RDA working group that I am co-chairing. So my name is Hylke Koers. I'm the head of content innovation at Elsevier. We're a small, focused team really working on the locus of publishing and information technology. Basically, we create enrichments to the journal article, really embracing new forms of research output, such as computer code, data, multimedia, research objects, so that as an author, you can really communicate and present your work in full, and not only graphical or pictorial representations of your work, and also if you're reading articles online, to really have more rich and more engaging user experience. So a lot of that has to do with data. Some of that data can be in the article, but we also do a lot with linking data to publications, and that is where I want to focus on today, and really give a bit of maybe a personal run through on the past, the present, and the future of article data linking. So I wanted to start as a means of introduction or giving a little bit of context, basically with a problem statement. I'm sure many of you in the audience will have seen this graph, but I think it's very powerful, so I wanted to start with that. This is the outcome of a survey that was done amongst researchers back in 2010, but I'm sure the world hasn't changed that much since then in this aspect. On the horizontal axis, you see the importance, the horizontal axis, the importance of access to a specific type of research output, and on the vertical, the ease of access. So all the way in the top right, you see research articles, so those are deemed very important and very easy to access. But with data sets at the bottom right, the situation is less positive, quite important, but not so easy to access. If you've worked with data or you've worked with people who work with the data, that will not be much of a surprise, because often research data is in the proverbial drawer somewhere on a desk. Again, this is some survey data where people keep their data. It's basically all over the place. And then when you find the data, that's not the end of the story. This is a slide that I took from Anita. I won't go through it in detail, but really the point is, it's not only about accessing data. If you really want to do something with data, the data has to have much more attributes. It has to be citable, trusted, usable, etc., etc. So clearly there's a lot of work ahead, and this is the association that came to my mind when I was preparing the slides. Hercules fighting the Hydra, and incidentally that's a nice opportunity to pitch Quora. In the sessions yesterday on sort of the tech lookout, we were talking a lot about social media and Twitter and discussion platforms like Reddit or Quora, and I actually found a very nice mathematical proof on Quora that this is a very challenging problem, but it's actually finite, so there is hope. Moving back to articles and data, one of the ways in which we can improve the value and the accessibility of data is by linking it to the formal scholarly literature. So linking the articles that publishers like Elsevier and others here publish, and data that sits somewhere else in a distributed research environment. Sort of for the obvious reasons. It increases the visibility, the discoverability. It also places data in the right context, so that if you find it, you know if there are any limitations to reuse, etc. So this makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. Many publishers, many data repositories are very supportive of this. And also for researchers themselves, they largely agree that yes, this is a good thing if the data sits in a data repository and there's an article that is published somewhere on a scholarly publication platform. If there is a relationship between the two, it makes sense to link them in a very visible way, both for human but also for machine consumption. So it needs to be linked, but that also needs to be done right. This is some work from Alberto Pepe that is on Authoria. Again, I won't go into the details, but what he did, he looked at the existing links from articles to data that are just based on hard-coded HTTP links, so people just writing the full URL into their research article, and then looking back in time, see how many of these links are actually still valid. And what you see that if you go back to 2000, 49% of those links are actually broken, and if you go back longer in time, it gets even worse. So it's important to link, but it needs to be done right. So with that, I want to put a line through the past and really focus on the present and the future. I hope we can agree that just putting hard-coded HTTP URLs in articles is a thing of the past. We should not be doing that, and let's focus on the present and the future. And for the present, I want to draw my work at Elsevier, and for the future, I will speak a bit about this ICSU RDA working group on data publication services. So at Elsevier, we have a fairly extensive data linking program. We work with a lot of data repositories, mostly domain-specific data repositories. And basically, I think there's value in two places. We direct our authors to those locations to give them pointers to places where they can deposit their data. And then we work together to make sure that if the data is relevant to a specific article, that we set up those bidirectional links. The way in which those links are done is quite flexible, and it varies a bit on depending on the use case and on the technical capabilities also of the data repository. One example is links based on accession numbers in the text. So this is quite common, of course. But a thing to note is that we also capture these accession numbers really as tagged entities in the XML. So also for machines, it's much easier to recognize them compared to if it would just be flat text. So in that model, it's the author who actually puts the accession number in the text using a specific syntax that we then recognize. Another model that we work with is showing these data banners next to the article. And Todd, I apologize, I should have put the Dryad example in there, because we also do this with Dryad. But this is quite an interesting model. So here we collaborate with data repositories to basically ask at the moment that an article is being viewed if they have any data that is specifically relevant for that article. And if so, these data banners that are linked to the data repository are displayed. So what that allows for is for these data links to be added also after publication. Of course, if data becomes available at a later moment in time, post-publication of the article, we cannot go back and insert links into the published scholarly record. But what we can do is show these contextual links next to the article so that as a reader you do have access and you are aware of the existence of that data. There's a little bit we can do beyond just linking. With a couple of data repositories, we have really taken this to the next level and not only link out to them, but really pull in some data or some of the metadata on the data sets that are linked to have data integration and data visualization tools next to the article. Here's an example of a viewer that we developed together with Pangea. This is marine sciences data, so it's always tied to a specific location on Earth, so it's fairly easy to put that on a map, on an interactive Google map. So if you're reading the article, you can see the location of the data sets that Pangea holds for this specific article. It's always there's always an immediate connection between the data and the article, which helps you determine if this is data that's relevant for you. If it is the case, then you click somewhere and that takes you to Pangea where the actual data is stored. So these linking relationships with data centers, that's really nice. I think it's a really nice part of my job to have those conversations with those data centers. But it doesn't really scale well. For these about 50 data repositories, we have one-on-one discussions to find out how to link and to make sure that we understand how the data is archived, etc., etc. So it's as a system, it doesn't really scale. And of course, for data centers, it's exactly the way, the same way around. They have to have these conversations with many publishers. So I think it's an example where, we have to move away from the system of bilateral arrangements and see if we can sort of centralize that so that there's a common resource where data centers and publishers can benefit from. So that is exactly the focus of this ICSU RDA working group on data publication services. I am one of the co-chairs of that working group together with Adrian Burton from ANDS. And Howard, I saw this already coming by in your slide, so thanks for that. So really what we're trying to do is get a large group of stakeholders in the data publication landscape together and really find out what are existing processes, existing mechanisms, existing protocols that currently exist as bilateral arrangements between, for example, publishers and data centers, but also providers of bibliometric information. That's another stakeholder in that landscape. And really identify those processes that are ripe to be lifted from this one-on-one mode to a more centralized, standardized way where there is sort of a hub in the middle that you can connect to and have a one-for-all service. And I think, the benefits for that are quite obvious. It increases the interoperability, it removes inefficiencies, it's just a more scalable solution. And at the end, of course, the purpose of all of this is to allow the different players in this landscape to create new tools and functionalities, ultimately to the benefit of the researchers. So in principle, the description of the mission of the work group is quite broad. It speaks to processes, workflows, procedures in the data publication landscape. But in order to have concrete and tangible results, we have decided that we really want to focus specifically on this relationship between articles and data. So what we are aiming to develop is, as a primary point of focus, is this article data cross-referencing service. So at the minimum, that's a centralized service where everybody who wants to know, given article A, what data sets exist that are relevant for that article, or vice versa, giving a data set, what articles exist that are relevant for the data set, you can ask that question and you will get that list of related articles or related data sets. We are thinking about the level of metadata that makes sense to add to that. So that can be metadata about the article, about the data, but also about the relationship between the two. Do we want to introduce a taxonomy for those relationships? What are the different kinds of relationships between articles and data that are meaningful to recognize? So those are the kind of questions that we are discussing today. But so at the very minimum, it's a central place where all the knowledge about links between articles and data is collected and exposed through a common service. So another way to say that it's all about connecting the dots. We're trying to work with people who have part of the puzzle, who know about some links between articles and data, and that could be data centers or publishers, or, for example, Thomson Reuters is also contributing, and really bring that all together to add all those links together and really have a fuller view on that puzzle. So I think for me it's really a classical case where 1 and 1 really adds up to a little bit more than 2, because there's really value in the comprehensiveness of this. So if we bring that all together, we really have something that's more valuable than the individual parts. We're currently in full swing, working with a lot of people to get their thoughts and further work out the concept and the things like the data structure and how we want to organize things, but also just very pragmatically getting content together, and by content then I mean a corpus of these article data links from people who are willing to contribute that, and trying to bring that together, harmonize that, and really package it in a way that we can combine these links from individual groups. This is a list of the current contributors, so it's a bit of a mix of data centers, publishers, and others. And this is a sketch of the technical infrastructure that I only put in to convince you that we are also really working on some of the technical aspects already. So, as a very high-level status update of the working group, I think we've succeeded in building quite a wide multi-stakeholder consortium. A lot of the people who are interested in this are coming together in the working group, so it's also serving a purpose as a sort of platform where people working on similar projects can come together and discuss where there may be overlap and where people can help each other. We have created a set of guiding principles around the openness of the working group. That's ratified. We're working on the test corpus from these contributors that I just showed, and building the infrastructure, and an ongoing series of outreach webinars and presentations like this to make sure that everybody is aware of this ongoing effort. The next milestone will be the next research data, the next RDA plenary. That should be Research Data Alliance plenary, number 5 in San Diego in March. And I hope we can really present some interesting and cool intermediate results there. Thank you very much.